Hey there, welcome back to The Empowered Edge, the podcast where we unlock your best self through optimal health, a resilient mindset, and lasting habits. I'm your host, Jenna Hostetler, and today we're continuing the conversation with Dr. Dani Hommer on inflammation and cutting through the noise around so-called healthy foods. Today we're breaking down that tricky world of food marketing. From yogurt to oils to wine, we are exposing the hidden ingredients and clever marketing tactics that are likely holding you back from feeling your best. So if you, like me, have ever stood in that grocery store aisle wondering which of the 12 healthy options you should choose, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. So, what are some basic things that people are always buying at the grocery, look like they're healthy, but really should stay away from as far as reducing inflammation?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked this. I actually did some series like on the reels with like different versions. Like so the first one that comes to mind that I know I did was yogurt, and people are like, "Oh, yogurt." And I love it because it's like gut health too. It has probiotics in it, natural probiotics. I'm like, you'll even say that has some probiotics in there on it, like Activia or something like that. The one that Jenny Lee Curtis was on, or Jamie Lee Curtis was on, talking about if you just have like one of these every day for 14 days, you're gonna improve your gut. There's so much wrapped up in that, and it's just marketing crap. And so like that one, for instance, like you just have to look at dairy quality, probably not the best quality dairy. The probiotic amount that you're going to get in that is very small, and it's single strain. We have hundreds of thousands of different bacteria in our gut. So to believe again that like one little yogurt's gonna restore that is just it's a marketing scheme. Like it's not real. A lot of those yogurts are going to have extra sugar, not real fruit in them. So it's one of those things where you think you're doing yourself a favor, but you're really not. So like my hack for that is to buy Greek yogurt, which is going to have a higher protein content. It actually has more strains of more active cultures, and it should say that on there. And then you add your own fruit or honey or berries back to it. So then you have control of not only the sugar content, but also like you're eating something that's a more higher protein. And it's you just have a lot more control over it. So that's I kind of like to do is like take some convenience foods. You can still have them be convenient. Like Greek yogurt is probably just as easy to pick up as the flavored yogurts. Have some frozen or fresh fruit, throw it in there, leave it in your fridge overnight, and now you have like the same thing, which is probably actually more economical and better for you. But I love taking things and making them like healthier, like either adding nutrients to them or taking some stuff out. It's actually like one of the things that gives me a lot of joy just in my own periphery, like taking things to family barbecues, and I'm like, haha, this is healthier, and they don't even know it. And then people are like, oh, this is really good. I'm like, haha, it's healthy for you. Like it's like almost like a game for me that I trick people into it. But people are getting a lot better, and they're getting wise to me. So now I have to, be a little sneakier about it and not so upfront. Um, Off that tangent. So things that I think you should definitely stay away from are going to be like, this is a blanket statement. I know this one's hard, but processed foods in general, they just have a lot of additives in them. They have a lot of preservatives in them, which actually it's funny if you think about it. Preservatives are meant to keep bacteria out of foods. So it's to prevent spoilage. But also our guts are made of bacteria. So when you eat preservatives, you're literally like killing the gut bacteria. So I'm like, when I like thought about that, I'm like, holy cow, like duh. Like no wonder these things are so bad for us. But then you also have like food colorings and like stabilizers and just like so much stuff that like our bodies don't know and recognize, and it's just a lot for our GI tract. A lot of those foods are also like going to be high glycemic, so they're going to mess their blood sugar. They're going to be low fiber because they've taken and stripped the fiber out of them. Fiber is really important for our gut health. So it's just one of those things where processed foods just they're a treat. They're not. They shouldn't be part of your normal staple. And furthermore, they're full of seed oils typically, which is like canola oil, grapeseed oil, rapeseed oil, soybean oil, all these things that, and I can make like a list and send that to you too if people want to like, have a visual, because I do have a visual somewhere in my in all my slides and stuff. But we get tricked thinking that like some of these oils aren't that bad, but I've seen result or research results that we're trying to figure out why are we continuing to get like less healthy as like modern stuff continues, and they've corrected in these studies for like smoking, movement, sugar consumption, red meat consumption, because basically all these like attacks on egg consumption, all these attacks on foods over the last like 30, 40 years. And they found that we continue to get unhealthier at this steep incline. And the only thing that hasn't gone down is seed oils. So there's, it's one of those things, it's not causation, it's correlation, but they're correlating that the only thing that hasn't dropped in like the last 20 years in our lifestyle is these seed oils. They continue to perpetuate and go into more things, and our health continues to decline. So that's one of those things that's kind of new to me in the last couple of years. I knew it was a problem, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Sugar was the bad guy for a long time, and I still don't, I don't think you should be eating sugar like it's going out of style. But I also think people should not be afraid of fruit. As with most things, moderation. But yeah, I'm starting to realize how much seed oils are having an impact. And honestly, when I go to eat now, if I go out and I have something that's pretty greasy, that's been fried in a vat of oil that just keeps getting reheated and reheated and it comes more rancid, I feel worse than like if I go eat something that has like a ton of gluten in or something like that. So even my own body, I'm starting to see that oil seems to be a bigger problem for me when I feel bad after eating something.
Yeah, and the oils, I did want to ask your opinion on some of the oils out there because I feel like, again, the marketing is so tricky and people have no idea what they're seeing. Because, like, I know you see these big, like, 8 cup containers of corn oil and it says, contains no cholesterol. It's like, well, duh, corn doesn't have cholesterol in it. Of course, corn oil is not going to have cholesterol in it. And, can heart healthy, can lower your cholesterol. It's like, yeah, but that's not the whole picture. And if it's increasing inflammation, because corn oil and I think soybean oil too are highly inflammatory. Like it
Yeah.
might be reducing your cholesterol, but if it's skyrocketing your inflammation, it's not going to help you at all. So, are there any? I feel like oils are just a huge thing that people can change pretty quickly and see, potentially some really good results. So, are there any oils in your research and your experience that you really recommend people use more often?
Yeah, and the funny thing is that if you would have asked me this like 6 months, maybe a year ago, I'd been like avocado oil hands down. But now I'm finding that a lot of avocado oil is actually being like I can't think of the word, but being like filtered in with other oils that are inflammatory, like I
Really
assume like
common.
vegetable oils. Yeah, like they're cutting them. That's the word. They're cutting them with things that aren't as healthy. Avocado oil, if it's pure, then yeah, that's still a good option. But that's where it gets really frustrating in these manufacturing processes. You have to buy from companies you know and trust. One of the companies that hasn't led me wrong yet, and this could always change tomorrow, is Primal Kitchen. They were unfortunately bought out by a bigger company, and I don't know which one of the big brand box, Nestle companies, which sadly happens a lot when these smaller companies want more reach in the market. So it's like a good and bad thing. It's a good thing because it gets more exposure to, and it gets further spread out among the population. But then you can take a brand like that, and when someone else is in charge of it, they start swapping in things, and you don't realize it until you start actually like paying attention. But as of 9/23/22, I still believe that Primal Kitchen is a pretty good source of good products, and they have an avocado oil that, as far as I know, is still pretty good. Olive oil is really good. Again, sourcing. This is a mixed bag. One of the things I read currently is someone was talking about how California olive oil is better than European because the standards are higher here. And I don't know, I've never heard that before. So you don't know what's hearsay. I do know that you want to have avocado oil that's extra virgin. So it's minimally processed. It's just like squeezed out versus there being some kind of processing, which is what happens with all the other vegetable oils, is that they're like squeezed out and they're like, there's chemical solvents that are they're like mixed in to like pull out stuff so they don't stink as much. Like it's pretty nasty. I'll show you. I have a video from YouTube, not my own, but one that I showed some clients and they were like, what? So I'll have that if you want to share that in the notes too.
Absolutely.
Just how chemical ridden the process is for vegetable oil. But back to olive oil, really good, heart healthy. The one thing that's again been the nuance is that people say that you shouldn't cook high heat with it because it will start to denature the antioxidants. I've seen recent research that says that the antioxidant level is so high that it can withstand higher heats. So again, olive oil best to I use it cold, so I use it in a lot of my salad dressings. So that's another thing that at the store, don't buy salad dressings unless they're that Primal Kitchen is like one of the only ones I'll buy pre-done, because they're full of canola oil or other oils, colorings, sugar, all that stuff. People think like they see light or, like simple ingredients. It's not true. Anything that has Kraft on it, just run away. Um, but I make a lot of my own vinaigrettes, and I use olive oil as a base for those. So I'm getting a lot of olive oil in every day on top of greens and stuff like that. I also like coconut oil, although if you have some gut issues with LPS, I'm not sure how much you guys are talking about like LPS and endotoxins. If you're having a lot of saturated fats and you already have an issue with LPS, that can be counterproductive. So again, use it gently, see how we react to it. Ghee is another staple that I use here. So even if you're dairy free, it has the dairy solids removed from it. So it's just the fat. So if you're not averse to animal proteins, then ghee is another great option. And then flaxseed oil is another really popular one. It's, well, not really popular one, less popular one, I should say. But it is to be used cold pressed as well. So you just want to use it in like salad dressings or as like some kind of finisher on top of like a piece of meat, etc. So those are the ones I have in my house. I'm like jogging through my brain: olive oil, avocado, ghee, coconut. And then I use my leftover bacon fat, like the lard that renders off when I make bacon. I use that for cooking too if I have it around. So
great salad dressing.
yeah, yes. I actually just had a salad like that last week. That was really good. It was at a restaurant, so it probably wasn't as good for me, but um, you know, you gotta give and take.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, one last thing I want to pick your brain about. So you have a link for better wines. What is the problem? Why do people care about the quality of wine that they're drinking?
So wine is apparently a pretty dirty industry as well. So it's one of those things where personally I was like, grapes, it's made from grapes, it's a ferment. Like, how can this be bad? But just like every other thing in the food industry, this is my frustration coming out, it has been manipulated and teetered with to make it cheap, easier to produce and more stable. And the problem is that trade-off means that we're taking a lot more crap in with our bodies. So, wine, like I said, is a natural ferment. So it's probably the least processed form of alcohol in like a natural, like unadulterated with way. But again, we're not making our own wine for the most part. So there's a company that I really like. I have no affiliation with it. Do you mind if I share?
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Scout and Cellar. And I don't even know how I wandered upon this on Instagram, like probably 3 or 4 years ago. But yeah, I really like their mission and I like their transparency. And so I'll kind of talk a little bit about like some of their tenants. And I mean, if other companies are doing this, like I will fully support them too. It's just this is the only company I know that is doing this stuff firsthand. So first of all, just like any other produce, you want to look at the grape quality. What are they being sprayed with? Herbicides, pesticides, that kind of stuff. Are they being harvested too early to create more yield? Because when grapes aren't allowed to go to their full ripen, then they're not going to be as sweet. Just like any other fruit, the longer it goes, the sweeter it is. Are they being grown too quickly? Are they like giving some kind of, I don't even know if this is a thing, but like, are they giving something to like expedite the growth? I know that happens like with, rotational crops. So I'm assuming that it can happen with grapes too. And so you have to look at, what kind of grapes are being sourced. And again, that's going to be the company's responsibility, but the company should be very transparent and telling you what they're doing. And a lot of people are, a lot of companies aren't. And then next, if like any of the above is true, if they're not using these good farming practices, then they're gonna have to add stuff to the wine to make it palatable. Because if you have bitter grapes and you're pulling them off the vine too early, that's what your wine's gonna taste like. And nobody wants to drink that kind of wine. So then they add chemicals, additives, or sugar to it. And you're also going to be getting the chemical residue from pesticides and herbicides if they, the farming practices were skewed towards that. So there's sulfites, and that's another big thing with wine. Sulfites are added into wine. They are naturally occurring. It's actually like I think it's part of the fermentation process. And the wines to prevent oxidation and preserve freshness. And so it's kind of like the grapes and the wine knew to do that itself. But wine growers actually figured out like, oh, if we put more sulfites in it, it will, keep it fresher for longer. problem is that sulfites are really commonly associated with the headache that people get from wine. So I've been there before. When I actually just had a glass of wine probably 2 or 3 months ago, and I was like, oh my God, like I haven't had wine out at a restaurant for a really long time because I eat a lot at home because I just like to, have a quality control. And I live in a town of 14,000, so there's not too many tempting things to pull me out for. But I had a glass of wine and I was like immediate headache afterwards. And I'm like, man, I haven't had one of those wine headaches for a long time. But that's what you get sometimes when, you're eating out. And then lastly, so look for wines that don't have added sulfites in them across the board. If you can, it should say if they are adding sulfites or not. I believe that's part of the labeling process. You have to tell them if you're adding sulfites. So that's a problem with a lot of wine labels. They don't have a lot on them, so you don't really know what you're getting. And I think again, that's part of the concern with labeling is that these things aren't being required. So a lot of people aren't privy to them. They just think, oh, well, like wine, there's just be grapes and a handful of things. And that's actually one of the things I just talked to Kelly, who is the girl who I learned about Scout and Cellar through. And she told me that starting right now or starting soon, they're actually going to be putting their ingredient labels on their wine, every single wine. So you know exactly what's in that wine. And I believe nutrition facts as well, at least a few of them. And that's not required of the industry. So this is one of those things where this company is going above and beyond to ensure that you understand what's going on in your wine and creating that transparency, which hopefully then, starts to shift the whole industry. So because transparency is beautiful. And companies that are doing good shouldn't be afraid of being transparent. I mean, across the board. And so and then lastly, they also test on the back end. So they test their products before they ship them out to ensure the quality and quantification of how much sugar, alcohol, sulfites, pesticides, and chemical additives are in their wine, meaning you will only be shipped a quality product. And again, that's one of those things that this isn't required. And I think that's a lot of the confusion around the food industry. And I do some stuff in the cosmetics and skincare. We think that the FDA is doing all this research and fact checking for us, and they're not. It's really bad. And so you have to be your own best advocate, and you have to do some of the research or find someone who's a nerd like me that enjoys researching these things and knowing them. So they can kind of decipher it and do some of that legwork for you and tell you about good companies and what to look for.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I realized, with alcohol in general, is that there is no label on it. You have no idea what's in there. It can be
Yeah.
a peach flavor, a white or peach flavored white wine or something, but you have no idea what that peach flavor came from or even the quality of, the wine or anything. It could just be all a whole bunch of natural flavors that makes it taste like peach wine. You have no
Yeah.
idea what you're getting.
Yep.
And but back to the olive oil thing real quick. So
Mhm.
I went on a ridiculous research several years ago because I would find myself literally staring there at this wall of all these olive oils. Okay, what I have no idea what to do. It was a paralyzing, oh my gosh, this one's $10, this one's $25, this one's
Right.
$4. They all look exactly the same. So what I did realize was that when you were talking about California versus Europe, is there is a company that has a California seal of it's been inspected. And there are very few olive oils that have that seal on there. So I have bought some of those before as far as inspection purposes. But also if you flip it over and there is no harvest date or a batch date, it means that it's a combination of a whole bunch of oils. And they can't put a harvest date because it was all harvested at different times. So just a couple interesting nuggets there. But yeah, the oil industry in general is just, it's crazy. Super
Yeah, it is
corrupt.
bonkers.
Lots of whatever we can do to make more money.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you start to investigate a lot of things that you think the government is, has their hands on for the betterment of the people, you start to realize that we're in this alone, and sadly. Another thing that with a lot of olive oil, that's one of those things where if you can't find a seal, a lot of times if they're in tin or glass, they're going to be a higher quality. That's part of it could be a marketing thing, but a lot of companies that actually care about their olive oil will be putting it in opaque things because light is oxidizing. So light will take those antioxidants and start to diminish them. So, and then obviously there's going to be phthalates coming from plastic. So if it's in a plastic bottle, probably not the highest quality or could have some contamination in it. So always look for opaque glass or tin, as well as the batch date, like you're saying. A harvest date is another good one where you can kind of trace it. And some of the companies, like the one I have right now, I can't even think of what it is. It's from Costco, but it's a Tanzanian company and it's in these big yellow tins. And you can actually source to the vineyard, where it came from, and stuff like
Oh,
that.
cool.
So it gives me a little more peace of mind. Again, like it's one of those things that sometimes I kind of just feel like it's a crapshoot, just like everything else. Like I do the best I can. And
Yeah.
also like that's one of those things too where sometimes you just have to do the best you can and let it be. If you are constantly like worried about everything, that stress component can take over. And then like you're trying to do something healthy for yourself and it's not actually healthy because you're so stressed about what your decision is going to be. So sometimes it's like make the decision, roll with it. And then if you find something better in the future, you'll learn. Like that's part of the process, unfortunately.
And yeah, and focusing, what is worth your time. Maybe start with what you eat most
Yeah.
often, what you're always consuming, and start to make that better. And then just kind of, yeah, work it out from there. So let's talk really quick about your free inflammation quiz that we have available for everybody. So, what can our viewers learn from that? What's that going to tell them?
So I created this because people didn't really understand like what inflammation is, how it's showing up in their bodies. And so it's just like a basically a symptom assessment. And you kind of tell me about, not me, but you tell the computer, the AI, about all your symptoms, and it will put you into the one of three levels to basically or let you know how much inflammation is going on underneath. So like for me, I didn't think I had that inflammation until I started having eczema, and I'm like, oh, eczema is inflammatory. And some people don't still kind of make that connection because the dermatologist or your GP who you're going to see for eczema is not going to say this is coming from inflammation. They're just going to be like, here's a steroid. There you go. And so you don't even realize it. But there's so many things like autoimmunity, anything that ends in itis. You get tendonitis, you have dermatitis, like anything that's itis, ending in itis is going to be that inflammation, um, you know, root. And so it's just like a big assessment. It goes through like all the body systems. So you can kind of see how much inflammation is going on across your body.
That's super cool
Yeah.
and really, really informative because, yeah, some obvious places where you know it's probably inflammation, but there's so many hidden places where you don't realize that's where it's coming from.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much. This was super informative and just really an interesting deep dive into the world of inflammation and how it really affects everything in your body. It's kind of crazy. And how,
Yeah.
and the gut also kind of affects everything in your body. So when you're dealing with
Yes.
one, you're probably dealing with the other. And there's lots of ways to still work on it, still fix it. You're never too far gone to start getting better.
That's totally true. And that's I know this is a lot of information overload, but hopefully it's empowering versus feeling like overwhelming. Because I felt really overwhelmed in the beginning. And so just take the next step forward. Like if that next step is finding like an olive oil that has like sourcing and a production date on it and is in glass, awesome. That's a win for the day. So remember that like you don't have to do it all at once. Otherwise it is going to become overwhelming.
Okay, now you're probably feeling one of two ways right now. Either you are fired up and ready to do a total pantry overhaul, or you're thinking, great, I can't eat anything. Everything's a lie. What is the point in even trying? And I want to speak to both mindsets because the solution is the same. If you're about to clean out your pantry and toss everything, hit pause, wait 24 hours. Because big, dramatic changes rarely stick. It is really easy to feel motivated right now, but if you overhaul everything at once, you are not building a foundation of consistency. And a month from now, most of what you threw out will be back in your kitchen, and you'll feel like you failed. Now, if you're feeling really discouraged right now, I get it. I've been there, and there is hope. You are not as stuck as you think. Whether you're ready to dive in or if you're feeling overwhelmed, the key is to start small. Pay attention over the next day or so to what you eat most often that you can easily adjust. Make that one change, stay consistent, and when it becomes part of your everyday routine, change one more thing. That is the most reliable way you will make any meaningful change. Slow, steady, and sustainable. Even if it takes a year to make all of the changes you want, you will be far better off in a year by going slow than if you go all in now, make great progress, and then fall back on old habits because you never built a foundation of consistency and follow through. Build consistency, do not chase perfection. And if you'd rather not figure it out alone and you want a more formal framework to follow, grab the Gut Brain Upgrade Blueprint in the show notes. It'll walk you through exactly how to get started healing your gut, reducing inflammation, and feeling much better without the guesswork. Until next time, take action, stay empowered, and I'll see you in the next episode.